Really, when you think about capital markets, there's really no better place to be than the New York Stock Exchange. A few of my clients that come talk to me and be like, I'm from LATAM, my company's from LATAM. Do you think it makes sense to list in New York? From all over, US and international, 7 of those are from Latin America. But the New York Stock Exchange definitely has, a very strong female leadership representation. You join a club of
very much so. Yeah.
Exclusive.
Welcome to Venture Ahead. It's a series of podcasts recorded by IE University. These were recorded in Porto Alegre in Brazil at the 4th edition of the South Summit. We got to speak to people who had done keynotes, former IE students. We got to speak to people who were on panels, people that we just met and found interesting. Do this at each of the South Summit because it's a great opportunity to talk to some of the people. So thank you for getting this far. Listen to the end and let us know what you think.
Hi there, it's Joe Haslam here from IE Business School in Spain. We're here at the South Summit, Porto Alegre, and we are here with Paula. Great to have you with us, Paula.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
So one of the things we do is that when we come here is the best way to find out what's really going on the ground. You can read in the FT and you can read in the Economist about what's going, but it isn't until you actually speak to the people that they'll tell you what the real trends are. So are there we all know lots of unicorn companies, but how near are we to seeing any of them on the New York Stock Exchange?
Well, depends on, what market we're talking about here. So LATAM, obviously, we've had such great, amazing companies in LATAM, founders, unicorn founders, build amazing businesses and come and tap the US market. The last IPO out of LATAM that we saw was Nubank, an amazing Brazilian fintech company, one of the largest banks.
Yeah, the
right?
Colombians like to claim some of the credit.
Yes, Colombian. Now they have operations in Mexico and also Colombian/Brazilian company. A great story.
Yeah.
That was the last IPO that we saw, fintech tech IPO that we saw out of Brazil since 2021.
Yeah.
And that was the last tech IPO in the US from LATAM since 2021.
Sure.
So we haven't seen anything so far, but that is because, the market was kind of quiet in 2022. 2023, we saw a few transactions come to market, but nothing. The tech space was like touch and go.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as we speak, yesterday we had Reddit. Right?
Okay.
Reddit was the largest tech IPO of the year. Huge, social platform. I'm a user of Reddit. I love Reddit. And they did very, very well, right? They raised, over $700 million, $6 billion.
I think they were a 50% bump on the first day.
50% bump on the first day, so all eyes. The market was kind of like looking at Reddit, seeing what was going to happen, and it was a fantastic transaction, fantastic IPO. The outcome is amazing. So we feel that, with this transaction, hopefully the tech market will open again and more tech companies, either the US or from other parts of the world, including LATAM, will looking to tap the markets again. From LATAM, we have a lot of companies, and I myself have been talking to a lot of these, amazing tech entrepreneurs that were thinking about targeting IPO back in 2021 when the market was open and that, the window closed, they didn't have their chance, and that now are gearing up again to tap that market. So I am very excited about tech IPOs from LATAM, hopefully this year or beginning of 2025.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'm from a sort of a previous generation to you, but it's in my day, the idea was to get quoted as quickly as possible. There was a real, that kind of move was on. And then we moved into a kind of an era where there was more capital available of staying private. And now many of those companies actually regret not going public. I mean, the finance professors all teach that it's the cleanest form of capital. You have dual class share or triple class, you've all sorts of complicated structures that all unwind. and that there's also a saying that, public companies like to trade with other public companies. There's lots of, they understand each other. So there's all sorts of very good reasons for going public, liquidity for your employees, all of those kind of things. But I mean, if you don't mind, I have to ask you the question, which is to say, when you're asked, like, why should we go public? What answer do you give?
Yeah. I think that, you touched on a lot of really good reasons, and those are the most, common reasons that I hear from my clients that are thinking about tapping the US market and just tapping that global platform. So one would be really the cost of capital, right? So there's nothing more efficient than capital markets and equity capital markets. Um, the second would be really what you said in terms of just from a business perspective as well. Being able to say, now I'm listed on the New York Stock Exchange. I am listed on, the largest stock exchange in the world. You get to a certain, you join a club of a very
Very much so.
exclusive club of very, very particular people and companies, the greatest global companies in the world. And to be able to say that, you really are at another level, and you can start negotiating and start at a same pace that
You get the coverage, and the coverage, I mean, is generally welcome, as we assume that companies have good intent, so they should want to be covered. So, being a quoted company is one way of achieving that.
Yes, absolutely. And then obviously, the other one is more from a compliance standpoint, also to be able to say, we are listed in the US, one of the toughest, most rigorous markets. That also means something from a security standpoint. Our investors can be rest assured that, we adhere to all of the SEC requirements, to the New York Stock Exchange requirements, to becoming a publicly listed company as
The
well.
thing that the US has, lots of countries have laws, but the US has compliance. It has actually resources behind. The feds will come after you.
You better make sure that everything that you say on your documentation is true, and they take that very seriously.
Anyone who's ever read like an S1 is like, literally there's a line in it saying, we are the most useless company. It's a sort of like, but that has to be done, and I kind of understand that. But it's a good point that it is access to capital. Capital markets are wonderful in terms of and especially the cost of capital, which is, I guess, everyone's trying to bring that down. So, the stock exchange can make that happen.
It's an essential tool to allow companies to grow and expand their business. When you think about really, why become public and why would I need to access that capital? Sometimes, you come to a point in a company's life that you are so large and the demand of capital is so large that really equity capital market is the only venue that makes sense.
So how soon, not that I have a company that's looking to go public, I have a number of smaller companies. So how soon should they start reaching out to you and talking to you about, how this might work? Road shows and advisors and all that kind of stuff. Like,
Yeah. So
how does that typically happen?
So from the New York Stock Exchange perspective, we talk to companies really early on in the process. And sometimes people get very surprised when I say that. People think that, oh, I'm going to talk to the New York Stock Exchange when I'm 2 months from my PO and I have all my ducks in the row. They won't be interested in talking to me prior to that. And nothing could be further from the truth. I'm actually talking to companies that are 3 years, 4 years to ever, coming to market and IPO in the US. But that's because we really like to get to know the company, get to know the entrepreneur, understand their story, and help them come to market. So there's a lot of things that we do from the New York Stock Exchange perspective to help companies prepare themselves for an US IPO, because everyone knows that IPOing in the US, it isn't easy. So we're here to help them and support them as well. So
And what about issues like moving headquarters to the US and things like that? I mean, is that an issue, or is that something encouraged, or does it not matter at all?
it does not matter at all from, our perspective. There is an impact whether you're headquartered in the US versus non-US in terms more of how you're going to file with the SEC. So you are either going to be considered a U.S. company or what we call a foreign private issuer. So an international company. But from the New York Stock Exchange perception, we love all our children, and it does not matter if you're American or if you're international. We're such an international platform. We have 2,400 companies listed on the New York Stock Exchange. Over 500 of those are international companies, foreign private issuers, and we love our global community. So it really doesn't matter. But from a LATAM perspective, when you look at, these LATAM companies that have IPO'd in the US, I would say that a fair number of them, especially tech from LATAM, have actually headquarters outside of their local market.
Yeah,
That
Luxembourg. Yeah.
Luxembourg, the British Virgin Islands, Cayman Islands, and that's for so many reasons, but mostly tax reasons and corporate restructuring reasons.
I mean, what's the perception of LATAM? A resource-rich, confident, strong in what areas? What's the general perception of LATAM in New York?
There's generally a very positive perception of LATAM, and I would say a high investor interest in LATAM companies that are listed on the New York Stock Exchange. So again, I agree with you with this thing of, perception. We might have the impression that, maybe, and this is also a concern with a few of my clients that come talk to me and be like, I'm from LATAM, my company's from LATAM. Do you think it makes sense to list in New York? How am I going to be perceived? And nothing can be, further from the truth. Actually, the global investors are super, super interested in LATAM. And I'll tell you a few key stats that always surprise people. But when you look at, we have 2,400 listed companies listed on the New York Stock Exchange. From those 2,400, we have almost 100 companies that are from Latin America. When you take the most traded companies on the New York Stock Exchange, the top 15 most traded companies from all over, U.S. and international, 7 of those are from Latin America.
Okay. Well,
So they beat,
They
beat Disney, they beat General Motors, they beat, these are highly liquid companies.
Yeah. Okay. Just talk a bit about you. I mean, it's always hard and unfair question to ask. Was this your dream job when you were growing up as a child? But how did you kind of get into it, and has it been what you expected?
Oh, definitely. I mean, honestly, I'm going to tell you a little bit of my journey. So I started out as a lawyer, securities attorney. So I've always, focused on capital markets. Capital markets has always been, my main focus and what I'm interested in. I've always been interested in how money works and the fluctuate and how the impacts that has on society, really, and how transformative it can be. From a very young age, when I remember I was, 8 years old, my dad also always loves to tell this story.
Parents or something, right?
You know how parents turn to their kids and tell their kids, if you clean your room on Sunday, I'll give you an ice cream. I'll buy you an ice cream. So at 8 years old, I would pick a piece of paper and I would write, if I clean my room, my father promises me to buy an ice cream on Sunday. I would give this piece of paper to my dad.
Had it notarized.
He would read it. He would correct my grammar.
Yeah.
He would sign. I would sign, and we would put it in the table. So
Yeah.
I was very clear that I wanted to be an attorney, and then when I started my career, a securities attorney, because growing up, then I had an interest in financial markets. From that, really, when you think about capital markets, there's really no better place to be than the New York Stock Exchange. It's the largest stock exchange of the world. There's nowhere else that you can go, really. So when I joined the New York Stock Exchange, 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago, and I actually went inside that building and I saw that I'm on Wall Street and my building is literally the New York Stock Exchange. That's where I work. It was kind of like a pinch myself moment that I said, I can't believe that this is happening.
And I guess you get to accompany your clients, bring them around the building, and ring bells and all these kind of stuff.
Yes. And it is such an exciting and vibrant place that you can see. It's such a mixture of, the new technology that we see in the street and the screens that are all around and all of that. But also there's that weight of a lot of very important people have been here, and it's a building, and it's a place that's been there for 231 years, almost 232 years, and you definitely feel that as well. So it's yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. Is your gender in any way relevant to your job or not at all?
Um, I I don't believe that, when they were looking for a candidate, they went one way or the other. But the New York Stock Exchange definitely has, a very strong female leadership representation, and that is very important for us. So our president and CEO is a woman, Lynn Martin. She's the second woman president and CEO of the New York Stock Exchange. The first one was Stacy a couple of years ago. And then when you look, so the New York Stock Exchange takes this absolutely very, very seriously. And then when you look also at our community of listed companies, um, almost literally, I think it was 99% of NYSE listed companies have at least one female board member, and over 80% have two or more. So diversity is something that, it is slowly changing.
Yeah, I know. And the other question I ask most people is what things do you think you do well? I mean, is it, everyone who's reached a position of responsibility, usually it's because they know what they do well and they try to do more of that. And, and then they try to not do the things they don't do well. I mean, is that a conscious choice you've made, or you think you're an all-rounder?
No, 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 definitely. I think that the more you understand yourself, the more you can foster your specific strengths. And no one is perfect. No one knows everything. So whenever you can, the more you understand yourself and your strengths, the more you will grow into that direction. I think you do have to focus in one direction. So for me, just because how I grew up, I was born in the U.S., but grew up. My parents are Brazilian, lived in Brazil for a while, but also lived in Paris for a very long time. Grew up in Paris when I was a kid. So I have this very international background. So when I was looking for a job and, what I wanted to do, I knew that that was one of my strengths, that being international, to understanding different cultures, speaking all of these languages, being able to relate with people that thought very differently from me. And so when I was thinking about a platform where to look for a job and what made sense, I definitely took that in consideration because that's how I stand out. So it's definitely important. Yeah.
Sure. And what do you make? This is also a conversation I had with a Lebanese guy I had who also had like a very similar mix of cultures. Like, there is this, particularly in the tech center, this kind of France versus America kind of rivalry. And you have like the irony that LVMH, Bernard, I always.
Yeah, the French. I love the French, but the French.
And they go on holidays, and then you have our news like the wasn't rich as he overcame. It was higher than Asporado, whatever that is, in Elon Musk for a while. So he clearly is doing something right. So I mean, is there something to be said about like, is there a French capitalism and an American capitalism, and what are the strengths and weaknesses?
Although there's definitely an American capitalism.
Yeah.
That is for sure. I would say that, from the French community, we do have this amazing, amazing French companies also listed, on the New York Stock Exchange. And I think that it's something that, although the cultures are very different and how they think about money and how they think about capitalism is different, at the end of the day, when they're looking into growing and expanding their business, they look towards the US.
Yeah,
Right.
I think the thing is, I was sitting around 2 days ago, and I was sitting around with a whole kind of Europeans. We were talking about family and holidays and stuff like that. And I was just sort of saying that I come from there with the Americans, where everyone discussed the market, like up 24% and all of this kind of stuff. And it
So cultural.
struck me how important a strong market is in the US, and how everyone's kind of retirement accounts and all of that are linked to it. And in France, there seems to be like no
No understanding it,
Yeah, yeah.
really, and it's the same for LATAM. It's The United States has a very particular culture in that sense, that you have parents that as soon as their kid is born, or the kid is 8, 9, 10, will buy their first stock. Usually it's like a Disney stock or something very cool, and they start to invest as a kid in the stock market kind of be aware of what that is and what that means. And so they are very educated from a very young age in the importance of capital markets and the stock market and why they should invest and diversify their portfolio. And that is crazy to think about it. And when you think about, LATAM and other countries, really, other regions, and France is one of them, how that is definitely not the case. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know whether you saw Bill Ackman had a proposal that everyone should be given every American. Yeah, I was right, and you looked at the maths behind it, and it was quite interesting. And um, I often think of like some small things I did that I'd almost going back to the .com era and shares I didn't sell and like just leaving them there compounding. I'm kind of surprised at it's kind of boosted, and other stuff that I was moving in and out of, has worked out as well. So there's definitely, Vanguard and these kind of companies have, transformed the lives of a lot of American countries. I wonder, is there much awareness in the New York Stock Exchange, like that? A more of a shareholder owning democracy, I think would be a good thing for almost everyone, right?
Oh, yes, yes. We definitely believe in efficient markets and access to the stock market. So that is something that is one of our core values, I would say. And, when we think about our community of listed companies, we have, 70% of the S&P 500 of the 500 most largest companies in the world are listed on the New York Stock Exchange. So you can think about just the importance of these companies and how they've impacted individual lives. For over 43 million employers are employed by NYSE listed companies. So the impact of that, right?
So we're in the final minute or two. There's just something that a curiosity. I know your name is Senna. I mean, are you related to Ayrton? Or what's the like? What's
Yeah, actually, I am. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't change my last name when I got married. Because when I got married, I was like, I'm sorry, husband, I really love you, but Senna as a last name is much cooler. So I'm keeping mine, and that's that. No, Ayrton Senna is a distant cousin. Yeah.
Okay. And I guess, I mean, just for the public who might know, I mean, just his, I guess, I don't know what the right word is, like his legend and the pride people in Brazil still have for him. Like, could you just speak about that,
Oh, yes, yes. He is an icon. When he was racing, he had millions and millions of fans, but even to this day, his legacy stays. I'll give you an example of this. There's this company called VTEX that listed on the New York Stock, Brazilian company, software company that listed with us back in 2021. And the founder of VTEX, one of the founders, their co-founders, is Ayrton Senna fan. And on his IPO day, he actually bought Ayrton Senna helmet.
Yeah, which had the flag.
And so he brought the Ayrton Senna helmet to the podium, and as he was ringing the bell, there was like the helmet with him, because to this day, it's a symbol of leadership and of genius, and really of Brazil. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's one, obviously, Brazil is famous for many things, football included, but there's always this thing about people coming from, like, some could say emerging countries, and like that you can be, like, clearly the best at something in the world, and that gives a pride and a confidence, so to have him so cruelly struck down, and the only thing you could say is that his death completely changed Formula One and brought every time you look and you see the tracks and you see that they've, the safety has, that's about the only thing you can say about it. But I still remember where I was when I heard the news, and, it's still sort of every time there's a Brazilian racer, he's always, is it the new Senna? It's that sort of, so the name is very much, and a lot of the principles, would still refer to him as being the inspiration and stuff like that. So listen, Paula, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming. Well, it's back to your home country, I guess, but it's still coming to Porto Alegre. And just to wish you every success in your career with in the New York Stock Exchange. And we'd love to see you in Madrid if you're ever passing. There's a welcome for you in IE Business School. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
This is Professor Joe Haslam again, just signing off to thank you for listening to the podcast. They're available on Amazon, they're available on Spotify, they're available on Apple, and they're available on iVoox. Please talk to your friends about them. Tell us what you liked and recommend them. We want to get these ideas spread, and they're a very important part of the community we're trying to build here at IE University. So thank you for listening to Venture Ahead.